Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Agentic Quality Podcast. Today, I have Nishadhi Nikalandawatte with us. This is her second time on the show. She was the opening guest for us in season 1, and she's back for season 2. I'm so happy to have you back, Nishadhi, and talk to you today.
It's so good to be here. In
And since last time, you actually changed your roles, and now you're a director of market solutions. So can you tell us more about your new role?
Yeah, it's a huge change. I've been doing quality all my life, most of the time, but last few years I've sort of focused or shift my focus onto market solutions or go-to-market strategy for QE. This new role entails beyond what's beyond quality, like the whole development engineering cycle. My role sort of sits at the intersection of business strategy, AI transformation, and human-centered leadership. So I work with organizations to help them move beyond the excitement of emerging technology and translate AI into practical, measurable business outcomes. And for me, what makes the role especially meaningful is that it's not just about technology adoption. It is about helping leaders navigate change, build trust, rethink operating models, and create solutions that balance innovation with human connection. A large part of that my work involves simplifying complexities for executives, shaping strategic narratives, and helping organizations understand how AI can responsibly enhance the way people work, lead, and collaborate.
Amazing. So you're helping companies transform their culture processes with the new technologies. So you're not just focusing on the quality transformation anymore, but you're focusing on a holistic transformation for the companies, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what I do.
I got that right. And so our topic today is related to that, right? So as the AI is transforming how we work, it's transforming our processes, but we want to understand at the end of the day, does that impact the business deliverables and does that impact the productivity and the outcome of it? And so the question I have for you today is when you look at the organizations that are adopting AI and they heavily invest in the AI tools, what's the honest answer? Are they actually shipping faster?
Honestly, it depends. I know it's a very consulting answer. I'm a consultant for the longest time, but I want to say the difference usually isn't just the tools. It's what was already in place before the tools arrived. So the teams that are genuinely shipping faster had already cleaned up their delivery process. So for those teams who had already had an efficient process of delivery, I think they are the ones who are genuinely making making advantage of the situation, right? The teams that AI is giving them a multiplier while others are struggling. So the teams that aren't, they got excited, bought the tools, watched the developers feel more productive, and then the gains just disappeared. Somewhere between that PRQ and the release pipeline, the investment outran the maturity. I think that's where what I see mostly. I see now, if I look at the numbers and you can see like the adoption rates are going higher and higher. You can see the license there's lots of licensing and there's lots of organizations like selling their licenses. But at the same time, you don't see that you can't see the actual ROI towards the end because the system or the processes were already broken prior to AI. So I think that's where I'm seeing the biggest bottleneck.
So you're saying if you speed up a pieces of the process, that might not help the whole process if it's broken. So the bottlenecks will still be there, basically. So increasing the speed of how we write code is not going to increase the speed of the delivery and the deployments to production. So if the team is generating the code twice as fast and the release cadence is still the same, so what do you think, what's going on? What do you think is absorbing that speed?
I think there's few different things. The constraints have shifted now, right? Because the back in the day, you will take 10 days to write like a simple piece of functionality. We just do it in seconds, right? However, though, it was never where they ever thought like this would happen. More code means more to review. Like I call this cognitive overload. I actually work with a client on this because now you have more code to review, but still you have no time. You think that you will save time from the development, but at the same time, the quicker the code generation is, you have more code PR to review. So the senior architects or solution architects, they're stuck with a whole bunch of PRs, right? And then more to review means more to test. Are we there yet with automation? Remember 3 years ago how automation was? We've not changed the needle of like adopting automation in efficient ways. Doesn't matter how much we adopt AI. So that problem is still there. There's lack of automation, there's lack of adaptability with quality. So that problem is still there. So if you have not moved that needle, you're still seeing these bottlenecks and you're still not moving fast enough. And then more to test means more to integrate, right? And if your review process averages 3 days and now you're creating more twice the PRs you haven't really solved anything. You just double your queue. So speed at one stage exposes the next bottleneck. So that's basic systems thinking. And it's surprisingly rare in how organizations actually evaluate those tools. When I think about the clients I worked with, I see some are doing fantastically well. And then if I look back to those clients, they've already had like really good established processes and efficient processes. And some, unfortunately, I've worked with some clients, they don't have a testing pipeline even, right? Imagine adopting AI on top of that. So tell them how to go faster. That's a whole different story. So I think that's what's going on because you write quite twice fast as you used to before, but the release cadence, you cannot really move the cadence if you don't apply some of the changes to your process.
And for example, in this scenario where there's a team which has a lot of manual tests which are not automated yet, right? And so let's say they invested in the development tools which are now generating code faster, but they still have now the bottleneck with the manual test. And there's a lot of tools available in the market right now to automate all of the manual tests that we have. So do you think the tools that are in the market right now actually solved this manual validation problem? And can we say that, okay, now we can do that as fast to keep up with the development?
I think it does. I do believe, look at Playwright, what it can do right now. Look at how it like spits out your UI automation within seconds, right? And then you have the self-healing capabilities with tools like GitHub Copilot. And like, there's so much availability. I think there's knowledge gap. And then also there's adoption gaps in some of these organizations. There's good reasons for it. Like people are being careful. There's tons of money to be spent. And then I don't think most of the organizations get the answer of like, okay, I'm going to spend millions of dollars for these tokens, but what's my ROI? Who's telling me that these things are like, it's moving the needle, right? So you have the tools to do it. We definitely from the QV side, I could set up an automation framework within like an hour or two, right? A good functioning one. And that makes things really harder, faster. And then I love to see that happening, but I think there's the bottleneck I see is like there's this knowledge gap, and then there's a fear of adoption. So I've seen it work fantastically well, and I've seen it struggle as well. So I've seen both sides of it. So you gotta think of like, how can we get the reviewers faster? How can AI generated code often looks so clean on the surface, but introduce these subtle errors? How can we avoid that? And then how can we cover some of the coverage gaps that's usually hard to catch, right? These are the areas that we can actually spend. And I think if we use these tools efficiently, if we adopt these tools effectively, and then you have the right guardrails around it, I think it's sort of opening a whole new world for the QE world. And I think it already has. And people do talk about the 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 need for QE. I think again, from the last conversation to this conversation, that need is still there. But how we adopt it, how we adapt, would tell like how successful you're going to be in this whole.
Yeah, a couple of things stood out to me from what you said. One is that there's no excuse anymore to automate the test cases, right? There's no excuse to have manual tests because there are tools out there that you can use to automate it. But the other point is it doesn't mean that you have to get rid of your QE team. With the speed of the development, the integration scope that needs to be thought through and covered and tested is much bigger. And we need to focus on that, right? So the QE would just shift focus from the functional testing to the integration testing and more of the high level, maybe customer facing testing, with the scope of the features increasing with the speed of the development. And so where have you seen AI tools actually making the measurable difference to the delivery speed?
I think the real difference, I see like a few different places, right? If I think they don't get enough credit in this area. So onboarding, right? That's a huge lift. Getting new engineers productive faster by giving them an intelligent layer to navigate and in unfamiliar code base, right? Sometimes you hire a new employee. It takes about weeks to actually ramp up and get speed up to the automation. Remember those days when you join a new project and you have to like really learn everything and like understand the architecture? It takes like weeks for us to really dive in and actually write a single code. But that's not the case anymore, right? That's a real win. I think that's where AI can make a real difference. And I myself, like my ramp up speed for anything that I'm learning, anything that I'm working on has like exponentially gone higher. So I think that's like one. And then the other piece is incident response. I mean, AI assisted root cause analysis that shortens the time between the something's broken and here's why has significantly gone down, right? I worked on a POV, like how can we use predictive defect analysis to sort of understand where the hot points are in your application. And you can use AI to do this kind of analysis, and your QE time could be spent on that. That's what I'm saying, that the mindset of QE sort of is changing to something different, something more investigative. And you are becoming a sort of a Sherlock Holmes type of detective, right? Instead of Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know. You pick one. I like Sherlock Holmes better. Anyways, so I think that's another piece. Like I was talking to you just before this conversation about the 18,000 defect report or the test analysis report that I had to like figure out how to review. Like there's 18,000 records, no kidding. It's 18,000 records. And then within the next week, we have to figure out what are the failures we are seeing and why are these failing. And it's impossible for 3-member QE team to analyze that. So my answer to that as an SME was, hey, just put it into your loved LLM and then just cluster these defects and then make sure that you categorize these defects so that instead of reviewing 18,000 rows on that spreadsheet, you are just accessing these 20 to 30 clusters of defects, right? So that's like the second piece. So the analysis part for the QE, if you are working on a very hairy system, that time that you spent on that analysis goes significantly down. That's where you can make a difference. And then the other piece is like honest documentation, right? You and I have been in this industry for way too long. And how much time have you spent on like automation, like test case writing and test reports, test results analyzing, a bunch of like stakeholder reports, right? That time has significantly gone down. Like most of the time people look at AIs making difference in just writing code. But for other parts of the industry, other parts of the engineering, I would say engineering lifecycle, there's lots of areas that we can really make a difference, especially for QE. I think the things that we hate to do or the things that we don't want to do, we can definitely automate them in a much faster way using AI. And that's how we can bring that our real thought leadership, that like analysis to the table. That's where we can make a difference. That's where we can actually like move the needle in the cycle. And yeah, go ahead.
Though I was going to say those are great examples. Like I'm so excited for the onboarding because it takes such a long time to learn the new code base, to get all the questions answered, what works how, right? And here AI can basically tell you instead of a senior person, it can answer your questions on how components are integrating or where is this component can be found and so on. So that is such a great application, right?
Yeah. And like imagine the teams that used to like skip some of these things because it took way too long and now actually doing it, right? And then that has like these downstream effects on review quality, like the actual quality, and then the knowledge transfer and the handoffs. These are much easier now. And these aren't like really flashy as you want to see as like building an app within like a half an hour as code generation, but they actually move the real numbers. That's what I want to focus on. Like I call myself a cautiously optimistic on AI, but you cannot really look away from all the benefits you have in front of you and how much of a difference it makes into your day-to-day life.
Yeah. And it got me thinking, we split the developers usually in the kind of back-end developers, front-end developers, right? And I wonder if this quick onboarding can help create more of the full stack developers because it's now much easier to understand different technologies. And full stack developers, I thought that always contributed to a faster delivery because we don't have to have one team dependent on the other team, wait for the backend to be done first, then develop the front end and so on. Do you think that's going to make a difference?
I think I would say it's a mixed feelings. Like if you were a front end developer and then you were focused on front end and then you wanted to like sort of ramp up on back end, I mean, now it's like such an easy thing to do, right? It's not like a huge lift to become a back end developer because the learning curve is pretty thin. However, though, I think this is where that my caution piece comes in. So somebody who has worked on backend system for a long time has that ability or that human connection to the code where what's right and what's wrong. If the AI spits out code, you can take a look at it and say, hey, this is right or not. Like if you are not an expertise on it, I think there will be like I would want to see somebody else looking at that code. If I'm a product or I'm a solution architect and somebody else who's on the front end side back in the day looking at the back end code and writing code, I would want somebody else's eyes on it, not like why AI. I mean, AI has gone so far that you can have an agent review your code. So I'm not going there yet because most of the organizations aren't there yet. That's where like I like that human in the loop is. However, though, I'm telling you, in the future that might not be the case, and we will really be equal. AI can be an equalizer for many of these roles, which is thinking. Yeah, I think that's what.
And eventually, like everyone might become a full stack, which will be they'll get their experience and. I think that might be better for just the delivery of the organizations, just my personal opinion. And so going back to the speeding up the delivery, so do you think it's more of an organizational problem to speed it up with the use of AI, or if it's more of a technical problem?
I think it's an organizational problem overwhelmingly. I mean, there is issues with technology sometimes because again, AI is still learning, AI is still growing, and then has long ways to go too. So, but however, though, I think so far what I am seeing hands-on, technology is genuinely good at this time. Yes, we have to work on security issues. Yes, we have to work on vulnerability. How can we put governance there? How can we put guardrails there? But imagine an image you create from using GPT or any other LLM model last year versus this year. I mean, it's significantly better. If you have used Claude Design, I mean, you're basically within seconds creating a full prototype or full design of PowerPoint. And I mean, create whatever you call you can name it, right? So it's getting much, much better. So what I see the constraint is most always that human system around it, right? How decisions get made, how teams coordinate, and how leaders define success. You can have perfect tools inside a broken process, and that achieves nothing. That's it. And the organizations actually winning with AI aren't just buying software, they are redesigning how work flows through the system, and that's the leadership problem, not an engineering one. Like, if you're an organization who has an IT org and you are trying to adopt AI, this is my thing always. Do not go for the most shiny tool. Just look at your problem. Look at what problems you're going to solve, and then start from there and go beyond that. Like, okay, you have this problem. This is why you're bringing AI in. And then think about at the end of the day, like this, are you getting the tokens worth money towards the end? And how soon are you getting those results, right? And then once you think about that, you can actually map the tools available in the market. If you go for the tool first, then you will just sort of fall through the cracks, and you will not see the already integrated problems with your processes in the beginning. And I've seen organizations fail to see that ROI if you have not thought through the whole process. So that's why I say it's not really a technical problem or a technology problem. It's more overwhelmingly like an organizational problem.
So it sounds like we need to focus on both, right? Like, don't just think that AI tools are going to solve your speed to deliver problem, right? But focus on the processes, and we will have to adjust the processes as we speed up, coding aspect. And so we accumulated a lot of processes over the years with Agile, Scrum, everything. So there are ceremonies, there are gates, there are approval chains. So do you think AI creates the pressure to remove some of these? Or what's going to happen to all of that?
It's a good question. And I'm sure there's like multiple camps of like people trying to share their own opinions. I've heard all the extremes to like, oh, we don't want to have PR reviews anymore, to I don't want to have a defect triage meeting, to all of that. But I think you have to really, if you want to see the success, if you want to really reap the benefit of it, you have to really take a step back and think through it, right? Usually, I think some of these processes already existing will be absorbed. And that could be the tragedy. You want to make sure that you are, no matter which technology comes through, you do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, why are we using these technologies? Why are we applying these technologies? So keep that always in mind. Like, if you think about doing the right thing, some processes will be absorbed, but you are not absorbing the things that you shouldn't be absorbing through AI. So organizations usually are very good at like layering new tools onto own processes without ever asking whether the process still makes sense. I mean, we've been in the industry for too long, so we've seen all of it, right? But AI should be a forcing function. If a tool can validate what used to take 3-day review cycle, you need to redesign that cycle, right? But that takes someone with the authority and appetite to say, this gate no longer saves this. I don't think it's going to be like an individual saying, hey, we don't need to do PR reviews anymore. It really needs to, you have to really do that analysis and assessment on your processes before you even touch how we are doing to adopt AI and actually implement AI tools. Most organizations aren't set up for that kind of honest self-examination. I think that's why we see most failures, right? You don't want to call your baby ugly. And right? I'm a mother. I know that. And then, so that's why the leadership, like the technology leadership, whomever, the CTO, the CEO, they need to really look within and see what are the problems we are going to solve and how are we going to accelerate with the tools we have, depending the problems we are trying to solve, right? You cannot apply the same governance methodology or same adoption technology to, it's not a cookie cutter answer. You can't apply one from the other. Like you got to really, if you do not spend time in the beginning to do that assessment, you will suffer. So I would say most organizations actually have to show up and then decide what processes you are willing to absorb and then what you want to continue and why you're doing that. You have to ask the question, why do you think that this is it's okay to absorb this? And then I don't think it needs to be a unanimous decision to do it, because otherwise you will not get anything done. But at least you need to have some SMEs who knows the craft to make those decisions for you. So to summarize the answer, like it will strip back some processes. I don't think that we are going to have the same roles, same existing processes in the future. I think it's naive to say that. But however, though, we still need to have that human connection in the loop in all these processes to decide what are the processes we can risk to absorb, and then how are we going to do it, and how can we explain to the other people why we're doing it.
Yeah. And in every change management process is hard, right? You always have to look back and measure the outcomes and take the feedback and keep improving, right? So I think right now, whoever is really good at change management is going to succeed. But so the teams that are successful and in adopting AI and speeding up their delivery, in your experience, what do they get right? What are they doing right that we can learn from?
I think I sort of answered that question in the previous one, because I think what they do right is they will stop measuring how people feel and then start measuring where time goes. And then I think they will map the delivery cycle end to end from the moment a feature is ready to code to the moment it's live, and validate in production and find the longest wait time. Like that's their constraint. That's mostly the constraint. And they will ask the difficult question, right? What are the parts they can see and measure easily and ignore everything in between, right? They invest in tools before they diagnose their constraint. They do not invest in tools before they diagnose their constraint. They measure the output. They don't measure the output instead of the flows. They always go for the flow first. And then they don't underestimate how much delivery speed is actually a culture problem, right? And then part of the thing is, like with AI, there's lots of fear of adoption because, of course, the job security, there's layoffs in and out every day. We talk about it all the time. So I think with AI adoption, that psychology, the psychological safety with a job is gone now. So I think the organizations that adopt this well go deeply into like building trust between the teams. And they don't have that willingness to ship small and learn fast kind of thing. Like you want to make sure that you spend time, and they understand that speed isn't just like a process out. Speed is a part of the process outcome, right? So like there's like multiple layers that I touched. So you don't really go and start implementing tools. You spend time actually diagnosing like what types of tools you want to adopt, and you don't invest in tools without knowing the constraints. You measure the flow instead of just the output, and then you don't underestimate how much delivery speed is actually a culture problem. So all this, if an organization get all of these things right, these pieces right, I think that's where they succeed. That's where I've seen like the organizations succeed.
Mm-hmm. I really love that approach to map, to understand all of the processes, to time them, and then see where your bottlenecks are. Because a lot of organizations make an assumption that coding is a bottleneck, right? But it's been long gone the times when the coding is bottleneck. We have so many more bottlenecks in our processes right now. And without understanding them, we cannot really speed up the delivery. So assuming that it's the coding that's the culprit, right, might be the wrong assumption.
Yeah.
And if a CTO came to you tomorrow and said, I've invested in all the AI tools, my team feels more productive, but we're not shipping any faster, what do I do? So what's the first thing you'd tell them?
I think I would say, I've been telling this the whole time. Take a look back at your processes. I think that's where you need to pay attention to. If you're not shipping faster, it's not because of the tools that you have adopted. It's the way you have adopted those tools. If you have not done a retrospective of your processes and where you are delaying the most, where you have your most bottlenecks, I think that's where I would say, yes, you are delivering efficiently, but I don't think that your PR review process is that fast. I don't think your bug review process is faster than expected. Or maybe you're not building your automation, you're using AI and you are spending more time than expected. And then if you're doing, I agree there will be some level of manual testing for some scenarios where it's really difficult to automate. But I think 90% of your code needs to be automated in QE. You should not be writing manual test cases, right? I think that's where I would ask them to take a look. Go take a look in your processes, and then I think they will find why they're not shipping faster.
Great. And the last question, in 2 years, do you think we'll look back and say that AI fundamentally sped up our delivery? Or do you think it's just another tool that improved the different parts, but didn't really impact the delivery number?
No, I think I've been always skeptical about saying yes or no to this, but for this one, I'd say genuinely yes. The ones that used AI as a catalyst to rethink how they deliver software entirely, these organizations will see a fundamental change. And for the majority, it will be a meaningful improvement in parts of the job. But the big number is release frequency. I think time to value, deployment stability won't have moved as much as the hype promised. But because those numbers are determined by the systems and culture and leadership, not tools, right? So AI is a powerful accelerant, but you have to have something worth accelerating. And I think within the next couple of years, you will see fundamental changes of your software development lifecycle, software testing lifecycle. I don't even think that there's that will interconnect as well. I don't see a different life cycle anymore. I see one product life cycle and then AI embedded in each of these phases. And then my assumption is back in the day, we spend less time from software requirement gathering to actually creating the stories, right? And then we spend a ton of time developing code and then getting into production. I think that's going to shift. I think we will spend more time creating context, creating pulling in data, memory banking, analysis, deep analysis, design thinking. We will do that more. And then we will spend less time coding and to get into production. I think that's the biggest shift I would see fundamentally that will change in organizations going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being with us today. It's been great catching up with you and learn more about your role and learn more about the speed of delivery and AI. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Of course, it's great to be here always and looking forward for this.
I hope to see you in season 3.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to be there.